What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Patriot Backtalk. I'm your host, Kyle Johnson. So today, we're going to discuss your rights as an American, specifically the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. Now, there's a lot going on in America that has put guns in the spotlight of the mainstream media. Shootings have become more frequent, and this has caused some on the political left to call for stricter gun laws and/or gun bans. So let's dig into what the Second Amendment actually says, our rights that we should fight for as Americans, and why it's so important to push back against organizations like the ATF that are attempting to eliminate 2A one tiny step at a time. So, the Second Amendment states, a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Period. End of story. The Founding Fathers didn't want to get too wordy with this, because this right was intended to be all-encompassing. Our right to own, transport, and wield firearms is set in stone. Federal government can't touch it. And this amendment was made because it was recognized as being so important by the Founding Fathers, since the people of America owning guns was crucial to winning the Revolutionary War. They knew that at some point in America's future that bad leaders would more than likely come to power. That's just the way of this fallen world. And they wanted to make sure that if an evil administration attempted to overthrow the people, that we as American citizens would have the means to defend not just ourselves, but defend America from being fundamentally stripped of its rights. And this defense of America from domestic evil is established as not just a right, but a responsibility by every American that we should take very seriously, as it's worded in the Declaration of Independence. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations are described as seizing or occupying a person, power, or property of another without right. So basically unlawful seizure. Pursuing invariably, meaning always, the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism. And despotism is basically another word for tyranny. So they're saying so far that when a government shows a track record of specifically attempting to overthrow American rights of the people, they go on to say, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and provide new guards for their future security. So one more time, just so this sinks in altogether. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and provide new guards for their future security. It's not just a right. It's not just an option that we can choose. It's a responsibility of every American citizen to defend the Constitution against those who would attempt to overthrow it, or throw off such a government and set up a new one that will stand for our rights and freedoms. And to do this, we need firepower. I mean, plain and simple. A government that's set on destroying America for selfish reasons will not listen to mere words unless they are backed by the ability to take action. And that's one of the main purposes of the Second Amendment. The other is to have the ability to defend ourselves in our own personal homes or when we're out in public or wherever a threat may show up. We have the right to bear arms and to stop any imminent threat to ourselves or the people around us. Attempting to take away this right is not just an inconvenience or an annoyance. It's a direct attack on you as an American citizen to remove your ability to most effectively defend yourself and your family from threats that may arise. You should take this very seriously and very personally when someone brings up gun control as a solution. It's like them saying that you can't have locks on your front door or a security system. It's an assault against you. And this assault has already started. And we've let some things slide already in this area. And as a result, organizations like the ATF, which is the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, they've begun to overstep their boundaries on what they're allowed to control. Most recently, this was evident in a case of forced reset triggers. Real quick background on what a forced reset trigger is, or an FRT. A company called Rare Breed designed a drop-in trigger that was to be used in an AR platform rifle. Also, real quick, AR doesn't stand for assault rifles, and I'm so sick and tired of hearing these rifles be described that way. There's no such thing as an assault rifle, okay? The AR stands for Armalite Rifle. It's just the name of the company that invented them. So please stop referring to them this way. It's completely false. Anyways, These forced reset triggers were designed to drop in and increase the rate of your ability to pull the trigger. Without overcomplicating it, it basically uses the recoil of the bullet firing to force the trigger forward and then back again, much easier than a stock or an OE trigger would. You're still pulling the trigger each time you fire a shot. It just happens at a much faster rate. The ATF, as they always do, stuck their noses in and told Rare Breed, this seems too scary and you need to stop selling these. Rare Breed responded by showing the ATF their own requirements for what the ATF considered a machine gun, which is illegal to own without proper licensing in the US. Side note, the machine gun ban, that actually violates the Second Amendment, but we let that slide for some reason. Anyway, the ATF didn't like the facts and logic as always, and they sent a threatening letter to say that these triggers may be considered a machine gun, even though their own description proves that they are not. It's not a gray area here, folks, okay? This is just black and white. Rare Breed responded by continuing to produce and make the triggers, since they weren't in violation of any laws at all. Fast forward to late March of this year, 2022. The ATF made a guns-drawn raid of a Rare Breed vendor and seized everything they could find in the factory. Folks, this is Germany, 1930s, 1940s, SS-level stuff, okay? An organization like the ATF has no constitutional right to search and seize property that completely complies with the law in every way. This is illegal. And for us to roll our eyes and turn our heads is dangerous. If you're okay with this, that means you are accepting that a government organization can break into your house, have no warrant, no reason, and seize your property even if you've done nothing wrong. It's scary, and we need to take notice. The most recent update is that Rare Breed has continued to make their triggers and sell them at an insane rate. If you find one for sale, I recommend you buy it because they sell as fast as they can make them. Rare Breed and the ATF are also involved in a lawsuit right now, but not much headway is being made as of late on either side. The other big concern that the government, aka Uncle Joe, has criminalized is the idea of ghost guns. It's basically a scary name for what's called an 80% lower. Okay? Basically, it's a block of aluminum in the shape of a lower receiver of an AR-15. With that piece, you can buy and build your own AR-15 part by part without the gun having to have a serial number. In early April this year, Biden announced that companies that make these 80%ers will no longer be allowed to do so without creating serial numbers and selling them through an FFL. This is because they want the ability to look up a serial number and find the original sale and purchaser. It's just another way that Uncle Joe is pushing himself and the government into your homes and private lives. And this simply makes no sense. An 80% lower is a chunk of aluminum. So what exactly are you banning here, Brandon? Are you banning aluminum? Are you banning the mills that can form the aluminum? The logic just isn't there. Criminals will still be able to make their own ghost guns, quote unquote. You're only getting rid of ghost guns for law-abiding citizens. And good old Joe literally said that if you commit a crime with a ghost gun, you can expect federal prosecution. How stupid is that? Why wouldn't we federally prosecute anyone that uses any gun or weapon in a crime? I mean, are you really going to tell a criminal that uses a legal gun that he only has to serve 15 years in prison? Oh, but if that gun was unserialized, then you have to serve more time. It makes no sense. But that is to be expected from the entire gun control supporters group. No sense and no logic. So where does this leave us today? All these government forces attempting to take your ability to defend yourself and your loved ones, and instead promising that they know best and can defend you better. Look, there's no sugarcoating these shootings recently. Families in that little Texas town are forever robbed of their children and loved ones because a deranged teen walked into a school and made the choice to kill them. The gun didn't kill them, the evil person did. And I understand when people see evil like this, they begin searching for answers to the why that it happened. But what they're really searching for is the age-old question, why is there evil in the world? And they may not acknowledge it, but that's what they're trying to solve. And the fact of the matter is this. We live in a fallen, imperfect world where evil men and women have caused death and chaos long before guns were invented, and will continue to long after the next form of weapon becomes available. Over the ages, Part of living in this world is figuring out how to defend ourselves as law-abiding citizens from the criminals that intend to do us harm. And right now, the best way for that to happen is to give good guys guns to stop bad guys with guns. I recently posted a news story about a West Virginia graduation party. Dennis Butler was driving in front of the party and at one point was asked to slow down since there were children outside playing. Butler, who had an extensive criminal history, including battery and assault, left and then came back a while later, parked in front of the party, and opened fire with a rifle. A woman attending the party was carrying her personal firearm. She drew her weapon immediately, fired, and killed Butler. No one at the party was hurt. Everyone got to go home to their families thanks to this woman using her Second Amendment right to defend those around her. Butler, the deceased criminal, had come by that weapon illegally, meaning this: if you ban guns and that woman wasn't allowed to carry, that criminal would have still gotten his hands on a firearm and been able to continue firing into that crowd and caused untold casualties. The solution is not to make guns the enemy. That line of thinking is used by those who wish to see us all as helpless subjects who are fully dependent on the government. Guns are the solution. I came across some numbers that stunned me as well when I was researching this episode. We've sent somewhere around $53 billion to aid Ukraine in their war. And we spend closer to $1 trillion per year on national defense. But check this out. There are somewhere around 131,000 public and private K-12 schools in the United States. If you took that $53 billion and spent it on schools, that would come to about $404,000 per year per school, meaning you could afford to pay 5 full-time trained security guards $80,000 a year per school in America. Now, this will probably never happen, and my point is because the government that is working in overdrive to criminalize guns and gun owners, they don't actually care about you. They don't actually care about our kids. Despite what they say, they don't. They've proven it over and over and over again. They care about power and control. And it's up to us as American citizens to show them that we don't fear them, but instead, they should fear us. We control them, not the other way around. It's high time the swamp rats in Washington remember the pecking order of America. As a final note, make sure you never let libs and the gun control crowd make you feel guilty as a gun owner. You're not connected to these evil shooters. You are not a danger or outside the law just because you own a gun. You have the right, legally, to own and carry that firearm as a way to defend yourself, your family, and your loved ones. And your country from anyone, and I mean anyone, who would try to take them away. And to those of you that may be listening and support gun rights being taken away, I turn to the immortal words of Charlton Heston, former president of the NRA, "From my cold, dead hands." All right, I'm wrapping this one up. And I want to thank Garrett Johnson for his work on finding info for this podcast, especially the stuff related to the ATF. In his occupation as a gunsmith, he's had to deal with this crooked organization more than most of us ever will, so he has a really good grasp on what's going on in that field. As always, thanks for listening. Send questions, suggestions, and comments through the Facebook Messenger or my email, patriotbacktalk@gmail.com. And remember, never back down or be ashamed of your patriotism. God bless you all and stay vigilant. We'll talk soon.